Look, after the previous episode, it was going to be tough to pick it up again. And it wasn't going to be as good. This is still pretty good, though. The Last of Us continues, and yes, I am going to try and keep up, do episode by episode reviews through the remainder of this season. And we'll see how I feel when it ends. And reminder for anyone who didn't catch my last video, I have not played the game. So I will not be looking at this through the lens of how it adapted, changed, or added to the original game. I don't have that perspective. I tried to play it. My motion sickness gets set off so easily by fully rendered 3D games. I couldn't play more than a few hours with it. I didn't keep going. So just understand that's the perspective you're getting. But I've enjoyed it up to this point. And episode 3 was fantastic. But this is also very good. And it's very good for similar yet slightly different reasons. So obviously the last episode was a flashback episode for characters that, our leads, Joel and Ellie, aren't actually even going to meet. But this time it's much more of a focus on the building relationship between Joel and Ellie. And I'm loving Ellie. Ellie is so great. Just like the fact that she found this stupid little just book of dad jokes, basically. And she's just rattling these off. And also how that's kind of what starts to crack Joel's harsh outer core a little bit is, the fact that he knew one of those jokes. The fact that he couldn't help but laugh at some of them. And that is, I was going to say contrasted. It's actually not contrasted. That is complemented by what happens in regards to the fact that we see Ellie shoot somebody, which is something Joel has gone very far out of his way to avoid happening. He has denied her a gun at every possible turn. She found one last episode, so we know she has it. But they get into a situation where they are basically being attacked. There was a trap. They didn't fall for it, but they weren't able to get away. They're dealing with the shootout. Joel is put in a situation where he might get killed, and Ellie shoots the guy. It is not a fatal shot. Joel ends up taking that with her out of the room, but she does shoot him. And that actually isn't a big moment. You're built to believe that it is because you're designed up to this point by the way the story's been constructed to view Ellie the way Joel views Ellie, which is as someone who must be protected from the horrors of this world. That's why he wouldn't give her a gun. But it's not just that we see her do this. And like I say, they actually protect the audience a fair bit from this. We don't see the impact of the shot she fired, nor do we see that guy finally put down by Joel. And she doesn't see that second part either. But she points out later to Joel, that was not the first time she's ever done anything like that. And that's really important. Because the way Joel has been treating her up until this point is, as I said, someone to protect from this world. Someone to shield from the horror that he knows is out there. And it's a real horror. It's not an imagined horror. But the thing is, why would he ever think that she's been shielded from it up to this point? Why would he ever assume that she didn't already know how to use a gun? That she had not already fired it at someone before? And my interpretation of that is that part of his assumption that she has been protected up to now, and that leads into his assumption that he should continue to do so, is that she still has hope. She still finds joy. She laughs at these jokes. She messes with him by finding this porn magazine in the back of this truck. She's finding joy. She's finding hope. And to Joel, the only way that makes sense is if she's been shielded by what's going on and she doesn't know and she has not had to deal with the harsh reality that he has been dealing with. But that's not true. Not only has she been dealing with it, some of the effects of living in that world have already been part of her life. And yet, she still finds joy and reasons to smile. Just like Frank And Bill did. Bill especially was someone who did not think there was a reason to smile. And this is going back to last episode. Frank showed him and shows the audience, and I talked about this last time. It is important to establish, at least for me, if you're going to get me to care about this story, I have to believe that hope exists. And there's the hope of Ellie herself appearing to be some degree of immune from the fungus. But beyond that, you have to show me that this is a world that can still have beauty and still have joy despite everything else going on. Because if you don't show me that, if all you show me is the misery, if all you show me is people like Joel, this is not a world I want to spend time in. Nobody else wants to be here. Why would I? This is what I need. This in the previous episode. We see through Bill and Frank, beauty can still happen even as all the world burns around them. And they're not immune from it. It doesn't fail to touch them. It perseveres regardless. And here with Ellie, we get to see her giggling joy at a poop joke. We get to see that crack into Joel a little bit. And she's not like this because she is too good and pure for the world. She's a product of this world. She's never known anything else. Doesn't mean that she is as ground down as he is. Does that mean that she doesn't still need some kind of protection from exactly how bad it can get? Well, no, not really. But this is a real important moment. Not just for Joel, but for the audience, for understanding who Ellie is in this. Again, coming from someone who doesn't know the games, but how I am seeing her in this. She's not separate from the world she exists in. She's a product of it. She's seen stuff too. Not as much as you do, but that's just by virtue of the fact that she hasn't lived as long. What she's been around, what she's seen, it's the same stuff. You're not shielding her. And she's not finding joy because she doesn't know. She's finding joy because she hasn't given up. And you kind of have. Although she's working on inching him back from that. The other thing I want to talk about the character who... I can't remember if they said her name in episode. I did check the IMDb credits. I think it's Kathleen. She's this woman who seems to be... she's obviously, there's this whole weird internal thing going on where there's like some guy in the area that she is having a power struggle with, and she's kind of in command of these violent people who are the folks who attack Joel and Ellie, and this whole thing where she's interrogating this doctor. There's all this stuff going on. But here's what's really fascinating about her. The casting is perfect. Because you know what the thing about her is? She's really, really ordinary. She does not have the look or the tonal speech patterns or the presence of somebody battle-hardened, of somebody who has been built up to take this kind of role, but she's doing it anyway. And more than that, that makes her scary to me. And I was scared of her even before she walked back in there and shot the guy in the head. I was scared of her just watching her interact with him and realizing you're not built for this. And you're doing it anyway. You're coming at this from the perspective of someone who never should have been put in this situation. And I'm watching you and thinking, I don't think you're coping very well. And just the ordinariness of her. So that we're not looking at nothing but grizzled survivalists and mercenaries and people who, clearly have spent at least the last 20 years, if not prior to that, being geared up and prepped and all this other stuff. She doesn't have that look. She doesn't have that feel. But she's still in this world too. And she's still dangerous. It creates a situation where there is not a visible delineation between the people who are dangerous. Well, obviously they're dangerous. Like, she's giving commands to this guy with this big, thick beard and a bandolier of ammo and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, some people look like that. Some people don't. They're both dangerous. Good. I'm really liking the approach this thing is taking. The cliffhanger at the end it's a little bit forced. It's kind of a standard, very tacked on. Well, we have to end it on a, ooh, what's going to happen next note, and it feels a little bit contrived. I'm sure it'll flow fine into the next episode, but I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of the obligatory cliffhangers that used to be at the end of Doctor Who episodes back in the classic era. I was like, my brain kind of did go when it's that last shot of that kid with the firefly symbol on his face and he's going, shh. I did kind of in my head hear the that they would always cap off the Doctor Who cliffhangers with. I can't help it. That's what my brain did. But like, that's a tiny thing and it ultimately doesn't matter. So I both like and then got annoyed by a little touch. Joel pointing out that the gasoline is degrading and they can't get as far on it. First of all, yeah. Almost no post-apocalyptic anything deals with that. The closest is Mad Max, and not because they acknowledge that the gas is going bad. The fact that at least Mad Max establishes that refineries still exist and that controlling them is a major source of power. Because if you don't keep refining new oil, the stuff you've got just breaks down. It's a little bit off because 20 years on, no, dude, that you wouldn't have gotten 20 feet on 20-year-old gas. That wasn't going to work, but at least it's an acknowledgement of the premise. Unfortunately, then we see Kathleen's guys all rock up in these big gas-guzzling Humvees, and it seems like, oh, you kind of pointed it out to act like, oh, see, we're thinking of things others didn't, and then you started doing the thing that every other post-apocalyptic thing did, which is all these big, massive vehicles that, you know, what would make a hell of a lot more sense is a bunch of, honestly, retrofitted sedans. You know, stuff that is not going to burn through gas like nobody's business if gas is this much harder to get. I don't know. I was like, oh, cool. And then, oh, you forgot the thing you just pointed out, didn't you? Because it feels like the limitations of how easy it is to get gas should severely be limiting what these other people are able to get their hands on and drive around as well. And that degree of thought doesn't appear to have been put into it. So I'm actually kind of like, maybe you shouldn't have pointed out the gas thing at all. Because now it looks like you only partially were paying attention to the thing you said. I don't know. And that's a nitpicky thing. That doesn't really matter either. Overall, I am still really, really liking this. And Ellie easily taking the gold for me right now with these characters, but they're all interesting to watch. And yeah, I'm going to keep up with this. I am still enjoying it. The Last of Us, episode 4. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and is how I'm able to actually, you know, eat and things like that. But even if you can't support me that way, like, share, subscribe, also help out. Don't worry too much about that either, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here so you can come on back next time you need a break. I'm realizing that I left the autofocus on. Normally I lock that. If this has been fading in and out of focus the entire video, I am very sorry. Well, it's Patreon supporter shout out time, folks. So thank you to Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfulla, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Angus Bjarnason, Linda Walters, Emu Delkey, Theotha Boyd, Toy Lowly, Becky Spark, Fernabilax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, General Contact Unit Problem Child, Angry Gasperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Thanks so much for your help. You can get your name read out too. Check out the rewards in the Patreon. Is that what they should do? Should they check the Patreon?